Mizkif taking an epic court fail as Asmongold gets a giant W. We're going into it today on The Legal Mindset, where we teach you to be your own judge. Of course, I'm Andrew Esquire, American attorney. Now, this is something I've been following for a while because this is a fascinating case involving many streamers, their corporations, and really it has ramifications for defamation and also a certain type of claim out there. And we're already setting some precedent here in what's been going down. So I'm going to get into today the nitty-gritty of exactly what went down in the latest filing in the Mizkif case. So anytime you see the language that says plaintiff, just put Mizkif's name in there. He's the guy who has brought this claim against the plethora of people that he thinks have wronged him. Now, of course, amongst those, of course, the prime defendant here is Emiru, who is not off the hook. But even with Emiru, her chances of winning seem to be going up based on the latest filing and what happened. And of course, we have the Roach King over here in his glorious rainbow shirt. He was a defendant in this case, but now things have changed in his favor. So what exactly happened? What exactly went down? Well, first we need to get into this law called the Ending Forced Arbitration of Assault and Harassment Act, right? So it is a specific act involving a specific type of, once again, legally, right? We're talking about legal definitions here of SA or SH. And this was meant to keep people who signed pre-dispute arbitration agreements from being forced into silence. This is meant to keep victims from being essentially bullied by these agreements, which they may have signed without really thinking about it, or maybe even under duress, or saying, hey, you're not going to get this job or position, or we're not going to enter into this agreement with you unless you sign this. So essentially, this is to stop people, victims, from being bullied and forced into these secretive agreements that might go down during an arbitration, because arbitration has its benefits, but one of the things is it isn't as transparent. People don't get to see what goes on in that arbitration. So that's one of the key things here. And in this case, we have to focus on, and the judge specifically focuses on the fact that this was meant to keep victims, underline that, victims from being forced into secretive arbitration. So what went down in this latest ruling from the judge in this case? Well, let's look at the exact text here, and this is fascinating. So they go on to say, the judge says, plaintiff, that's Mizkif, claims that the word involving in an SA dispute definition is so broad as to make the EFAA's treatment of SH and SA entirely different. So he's trying to break those things out for his own benefit to make his case. However, both definitions contain broad language involving, related to, but neither sweeps so broadly as to mean the person alleging conduct constituting an SH dispute or SA dispute, i.e. the person who may elect to avoid arbitration is in fact the person accused of or denying either SA or SH. Now, this is huge. What this is saying is that the perpetrator, right, the person who is being accused of perpetrating, the person who is not the victim here, but the person who is alleged, right? There's an allegation here out there that person can use it to their benefit. The law was constructed to help the victim, not the perpetrator, but the construction that Mizkif wants, he wants this arbitration prevention to work for him as a person who was, once again, allegedly by Emiru in her quote-unquote emotional truth, the perpetrator. And the judge did not buy that at all whatsoever. In fact, they go out to say that we're going to reject that argument and take up the recommendation of the magistrate judge Susan Hightower, who gave her recommendations earlier this month. So if you look into this, it says that they adopt the recommendations. So it's ordered that OTK, Mythic, King, their motion to compel arbitration is granted. So they win. So Mythic, OTK, and King, they're getting what they want, which is arbitration. So they're taking a win there. Next, it says litigation of counts 1 and 3 of their complaint is stayed. So that's the counts that related to OTK, Mythic, King. So those are stayed pending the arbitration. So now it's got got to go to arbitration as to OTK, Mythic, and King. Because once again, Mizkif can't use this to get out of arbitration. It also says, and here's the catch, that defendant Shunk, that's Emiru's motion to dismiss, is denied. So Emiru does take an L here, and Mizkif does get a tiny W, but there's a but, and you've always got to read the but. But plaintiff Misriendo, that's Mizkif, shall submit a more definite statement on or before August 10th. So we're going to have, in just a week or two, or 2 weeks, rather, at this point, we're going to have him coming forward with this, identifying each statement that Emiru said which alleges to be defamatory. So he's going to have to go and pick out every single specific statement, including exact quotes from her live stream. So before, Mizkif was being vague, saying that, oh, I've been defamed, etc., but he wasn't saying this exactly is the thing. And the judge is agreeing with what we actually said previously on this stream, what others have said, what Asmon said as well, which is, what exactly did these people say, Asmon, Emiru, etc., what did they say that is defamatory? Now, Asmon, as we're going to see, is out of this, but even as to Emiru, the judge needs more than what Mizkif has given so far. Then he's got to say, how is it untrue? Because if a statement is true, then, well, it can't be defamatory. And the last part is how it harms him. So even if he's able to say, okay, here's a quote, this is not true, but if it has no harm, then it's not going to be something that's going to be actionable, right? So now he's got to jump through all of these hurdles, even with Emiru. So while he gets that W, he's got to put in work, him and his lawyers, to go through with each statement and say exactly how that harms him. And that's going to be a little bit of a challenge for him. And let's see how his lawyers and him come up with that response. The other thing here is that Asmon gets the win. It's finally ordered that defendant Hoyt's amended motion to dismiss count is granted. So boom, Asmon gets the W. However, it's dismissed without prejudice, and that's signed July 10th by Robert Pittman, U.S. District Judge. So just in case you guys don't know, and this is very important for you guys to understand with any legal case, there's with prejudice and without prejudice. In the legal context, without prejudice really means without loss or waiver or any right or privileges. So in this case, that means that it is possible, theoretically, hypothetically, it is possible that Mizkif could refile later against Asmongold. So while Asmongold's case is dismissed, it is possible, if there were some new facts or something else came out, or there was some discovery that came out, it is possible that he could come back and try to swing against Asmon again. Now, I don't think that's a wise choice. I don't think that's going to be a winning strategy, but of course, we don't know yet. There may be more discovery where he'll try to find a fact and come against Asmon again. So let's turn over to my judgment here. So in judgment, Asmongold has been completely cleared at this point, right? Until we get, until and unless there's more secret facts out there, there's something we don't know, Asmongold's off the hook. OTK, Mythic, King, they get a W with compelling arbitration. And then Mizkif now needs to specifically go through, do the work with his lawyers, and explain how each statement was defamatory, how it was false, and how it harms him. That's going to be a significant hurdle for Mizkif. And then Mizkif still has a chance. So I don't want to say at this point, once again, you never know with cases. They can take wild and crazy turns. So I want to be conservative here in my assessment, saying, yes, it is possible that Mizkif could find some facts and come against Asmongold again. It's possible he could prevail against Emiru. But at this point, his window for victory is narrowing. It's becoming harder and harder for Mizkif. And this is the point at which I would say to Mizkif, are you really committed to taking this all the way, or would a settlement really make you happy, bro? Would you be okay with some form of settlement, maybe an Emiru apology saying, hey, I framed this in a bad way. I shouldn't have said this way. Maybe I should have framed this in a different way, right? Maybe it shouldn't have been my emotional truth. Maybe I should have framed this in a more objective and neutral way. Maybe something like that, a settlement, maybe a payment. Who knows? Is that an option that might be better for you or better for all parties? I would say, look, Mizkif, your window is closing. Asmongold has already gotten that W over you. How far are you willing to take this? But I want to know what you guys think in the comments below, and I will catch you on the next one.